I can reveal that the Cabinet have been doing a whip round for the Prime Minister to get him a leaving present. They bought him a carriage clock.
Pretty brutal, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Haigh did a podcast.
Oh, yes,
other podcasts
yeah.
are available with Nick Robinson. And in that, she said that Burnham had been planning for power for a year. And she was kind of doing that to kind of repudiate suggestions he wasn't prepared. But that went down very badly.
Yeah, the remaining Starmer loyalists, are furious.
There are quite a lot of them as well, right?
Yeah, when Keir Starmer did his sort of teary goodbye in the Rose Garden to these people, there was number 10A at the side of the room who was surveying the room. And I think they said to a colleague, can you see how many MPs are here? There are, I think the number was 40 or 60 or something. So there's 40 MPs here who've turned up. You know, this is the sort of silent minority of the PLP. They think they're screwed, right? They're not going to get jobs under Andy's new regime. They feel devastated. They feel humiliated. And they listen to interviews like Haigh one, which she subsequently clarified and said, you know, and I mean, to be fair, literally everyone was thinking about a leadership transition for a year. I mean, this isn't news.
We've been writing it, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it would have been, it's a sort of damned if she said, well, actually, no, this is, you know, Josh resigned. Josh just decided to resign. And then Andy thought, yeah, maybe I want to be Prime Minister. I mean, come off it. But anyway, these people listening to that sort of Rose Garden ultra character, you know, the Keir Starmer day ones, Keir Starmer's ride or dies, right? Whatever you want to say. They're the people who are listening to that. MPs, cabinet ministers, people who know their time is coming to an end in quite an undignified way, listening to that and just getting furious. And you can really see, especially, you know, this problem will be writ large. There'll be loads of people with nothing to lose. There'll be cabinet ministers who are sacked and feel humiliated. There'll be junior ministers who feel their career has been cut off in the prime of their youth because they have backed the wrong horse and they're not part of the in crowd. They'll feel like they're the subject of nasty retribution and they'll think, well, I've got nothing to lose. You know, I'm not going to join in this great jamboree. I'm not going to buy an Everton replica kit. I'm not going to go to Wigan anymore, right? You know what I mean? These people will feel like they have nothing to lose and they listen to the new regime and they see evidence of that everywhere. So that was not a great moment. Yeah, bad blood.
And look, we should just move on. Lastly, when we're thinking about, you've got a great anecdote about Starmer. Can you give us Starmer? I do. Sorry, this is outstanding. Go, Patrick.
Well,
please.
I don't know what time this podcast is going out, but I am sure the Prime Minister is not listening to it because he never listens to me. So I can reveal that the Cabinet have been doing a whip round for the Prime Minister to get him a leaving present. They have bought him, and when somebody told me this, I thought, what year are we living in? They bought him a carriage clock, which apparently the same clockmaker as did the new face of the Elizabeth Tower.
So not a normal clock. It's I'm sure a beautiful piece.
Yeah. But that was like a carriage clock was sort of like,
it's old school, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, I've worked in the bus depot for 50 years and I've finally got a little carriage clock. I don't get it. Anyway, David Lammy organised this whip round, very good of him, but briefly did it on sort of like, it wasn't sort of like GoFundMe, it was something like GoFundMe, like he did like a public, inadvertently had like a public website up for it for a while. And this was eventually pointed out, and the Cabinet were all like writing little, donating and writing little comments saying, a bit like, when a colleague leaves and you're like, oh, mate, I really miss you. Bit of that. Lord Hermer apparently wrote a really, really long essay. Someone did say to me, Ed Miliband is like a sentence long. But yeah, so that'd be nice. Keir Starmer's final Cabinet meeting, he'll get his present, he'll get a round of applause. Presumably Ed Miliband will be there with a pitchfork making sure he actually leaves.
Pretty brutal, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like you say, when you just leave with the carriage clock. But obviously he is hoping to leave, having seen the World Cup the night before and got the red eye back just in time, which is, if that,
But there's an interesting question as well, by the way. I don't want to curse
the game.
Well, no, there's an interesting question as well. Right, so if you are Andy Burnham, what do you do on Sunday? Because I am sure if he wants to go, there'll be an invite. But who are you going with? Right? Do you fly with Prince William? Do you fly by yourself? Do you fly schedule? Everyone's got to be back. Do Andy Burnham and Keir Starmer end up on the same government plane on the way back?
Andy Burnham cannot go, surely.
I don't
You can only
know.
have one prime minister at these events.
Well,
Maybe they could sit next to each other. There was a great stat in one of our pieces today, which is that England have won 76% of their games under Keir Starmer's premiership. Huge figure.
Well, it's interesting. We have only ever won the World Cup under Labour governments. So there you go.
Okay, right. Let's not curse it too much. So look, we've dealt with some of the most senior cabinet positions, and we've also talked about the bitter infighting that is gripping Andy Burnham's team behind the scenes. The bigger picture is actually, what is Andy Burnham going to do with power when he stands on the steps of Downing Street next week? It's the cost of living, stupid, right? Everything is going to be focused on the cost of living. And he has this mantra of, which is actually a Keir Starmer mantra originally, putting more money in people's pockets. And he is going to come up with a series of what he hopes will be swift and tangible announcements feeding into the autumn budget on the cost of living. So the ones that we know about are, we know that he is interested, obviously, in free bus passes for young people. He wants to do something with energy bills, possibly knock VAT off energy bills, which would save people some money from their energy bills. There's an interesting conversation happening around student loans. He's very concerned about the iniquities of student loans and what that's doing to young people. We even heard rumours at the weekend that they could be looking at some kind of tax cut for lower earners. We're not sure what form that takes yet, but very clearly he knows that he cannot afford to repeat the mistakes of Keir Starmer. He cannot come into number 10 promising change and then within a few weeks promulgate misery, which is what Keir Starmer did, as we all remember, with stripping people of the winter fuel allowance. So he is going to be unbridled optimism from the steps of number 10, and from this will flow a series of consultations, which then feed, we think, into the autumn budget and possibly a series of announcements from that.
I mean, we had some polling over the weekend from More in Common and UCL Policy Lab, which was really interesting, showing that actually voters are less patient than they were under the beginning of Keir Starmer. So actually, even though there's this narrative around voters being impatient, actually when Keir Starmer came into government in 2024, more voters were likely to favour incremental than radical change. That's completely flipped now. That's not true. And then secondly, while voters are patient on some issues and give Burnham some time, they are particularly impatient about seeing action on cost of living. So they do want to see that very clearly. And actually, that's something when I speak to those around Burnham, they're very mindful of, particularly on timings of the budget. They think, for example, that, Rachel Reeves' decision, the current chancellor, to wait last year was misguided, that actually that fed into longer speculation. So I think they are looking at trying to get that up. And I think I would point to the fact that, Darren Jones was going up to make a field to the constituency when Andy Burnham was running that campaign to talk to Louise Haigh about budget preparations to reassure her that those things were ongoing. I think they will be looking at a slightly shorter timeframe on that, and they are particularly mindful about those economic announcements coming early.
And there's this fascinating conversation about a mega budget. So they're possibly looking at taking the budget, which is one part of it, and next year's spending review, bringing that forward. And the spending review sets out the kind of path of spending over the next 5 years. But if you want to, for example, build more council homes than in any period since the post-war, then you're going to need to reallocate the entire of the affordable housing budget, which is like 39 billion quid, directly into council housing, which is the kind of thing why you might bring forward a spending review. So you could get this mega fiscal event, which could also, I've mentioned tax cuts. Obviously, there are going to have to be tax rises, and they are looking at a whole series of things, predominantly around, as they see it, taxes on wealth. And that is going to be a really difficult process, because if you listen to Jim O'Neill, who we mentioned earlier, who looks like he's going to be an economic advisor in number 10, he is cautioning very strongly against big tax rises on wealth, particularly capital gains tax, which he said, if you whack that up, if you bring it into line with income tax, you are deterring wealth creation, you are deterring entrepreneurs and the kind of people you want to attract. So a really difficult mega budget coming down the line.
Yeah, indeed. And the other thing to keep an eye on in terms of the politics of this is taxes and fiscal decisions that are seen to benefit the regions, particularly the north, at the expense of London. I mean, that is I think I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but there is a sort of faint but perceptible and growing rumble of discontent from Labour MPs in the southeast. Some of them are now empowered to speak publicly. I think the MP for Gillingham has already come out and basically said Andy Burnham needs to, not take a stereotypical view of constituencies like mine and sort of, get real. He's made a point in all of his speeches of talking about the southwest and that sort of thing, and talking about London's housing market being overheated. But we're looking at things like a land value tax, anything that sort of is seen to hit the southeast, or indeed does hit the southeast more than it hits everywhere else. There will be lots of Labour MPs, particularly those 2024 gains, around London, sort of commuter country, who say, oh God, this ain't the electoral coalition I thought we had.